Hello, welcome. In this video, we are going to look at human resource planning, which is abbreviated as HRP. In some books, it is written manpower planning. So when you come across manpower planning or human resource planning, it is the same thing. So by the end of this video, you will be able to administer human resource planning, address human resource planning problems, and identify factors affecting human resource planning. Now, let us look at the definition of human resource planning. Buller and Scott define human resource planning as a process for ensuring that the human resource requirements of an organization are identified and plans are made to satisfy those requirements. In simple terms, we are saying that human resource planning is all about ensuring that the organization has the required number of competent workers who are committed to do their jobs. So human resource planning is one of the core functions of human resource department. Forget about recruitment. Recruitment comes in when the human resource department has successfully planned for the future need of personnel or the future need of human resource. So if human resource planning is not done well, the organization is going to suffer from two problems. Problem number one is that the organization will be facing a challenge of labor shortage. See, labor shortage means the workers are few compared to the workload. That's problem number one. This affects the productivity of the employees because at the end of the day, they will be exhausted because of too much work. Problem number two is the labor supplies. Labor surplus means the workers are too much, yet the work they are doing is less. And it's a problem. For example, if you work in profit-making companies or profit-making organizations, whereby profit is used to pay workers, the organization is going to pay a lot of money to people who are redundant. So as human resource professionals or as potential human resource professionals, you need to make sure that you have planned well as far as human resource is concerned before we think of a recruitment. So basically, this is a definition of human resource planning or manpower planning. Now, let us look at the objectives of human resource planning. One is proper assessment of human resource needs in future. So when we talk of human resource needs in future, we're talking about the retention. We are talking about the retirement. Okay, because when employees are working in the organization, what you expect from them at one time is they are going to retire. So you need to plan for their retirement as early as possible. Do not wait for the employees to almost resign or to almost reaching the retirement age. That's when you start planning for their retirement. No, you need to start planning well now. That's objective number one of human resource planning. Objective number two is anticipation of deficient or surplus manpower and taking the corrective action. I've just explained to you the problems the organization is most likely going to face when the human resource planning is not done well. So when we talk about deficient or surplus, we're talking about the labor shortage or labor surplus. So when you discover that you have labor shortage, what comes next now is the recruitment. You need to recruit more people to make sure that the organization has the required number of employees. But when you discover that you have labor surplus, it means the employees are too much. Okay, you need to, one, maybe not to renew the contract of some employees, or you can do what we call downsizing. This is to make sure that you reduce on the number of employees in a particular organization. The next objective of human resource planning is to create a highly talented workforce in the organization. So people who are concerned with the manpower planning is they only plan for people who are performing. They are planning for people who are committed. They are planning for people who are motivated. And the plan can be in terms of training. If you are doing training your workers, it means by the end of the year, you're going to have a workforce full of talents, a workforce full of skillful people. So that's objective number three of human resource planning. The next objective of human resource planning is to reduce the costs associated with the personnel management. What are those costs? The cost of recruitment. Recruitment comes with a huge risk. You may end up selecting the wrong person, thinking that he or she is the competent person. So when you plan well, such risks are going to be reduced. The time is spent on advert, shortlisting, conducting interview. All this time will be reduced if you really plan well for your employees. So basically, these are some of the objectives of human resource planning or manpower planning. Now let us look at some of the steps to human resource planning. One is analyzing labor supply. So here the HR department studies the strength of the organization based on the number of employees, their skills, qualifications, position, benefits, and performance level. So as human resource manager, before you think of planning, you need to analyze the strength of your workers. Do you have sufficient workers in the organization, or you do not have them? What are their qualifications and skills? How are they performing? So this one will help you to plan well. If you don't do this, then almost there's no plan. You are going to do nothing because you don't know the skills of your employees. You don't know how they're performing. You don't know their qualification. The whole thing will not work. So the good thing for you to do is to make sure that you analyze the labor supply by looking at the qualifications and skills of what you have at hand. Step number 2 is forecasting labor demand. Here, the HR department focuses on external conditions impacting labor demand, such as new technology that might increase or decrease the need for workers. We are living in a changing environment. Technologies, every day new things are coming. So you need to look at that. Because you might plan for your workers. For example, you need to have maybe 50 workers this year. How about technology? Technology might affect that. Technology may require you to have less, or technology may require you to have more. So as you're planning to do that, you need to look at the technological aspect of the environment so that you come up with the accurate plan for your employees. Step number 3 is the gap analysis. Under the gap analysis, the HR creates a gap analysis that lays out specific needs to narrow the supply of the company's labor versus future demand with the following questions. 1, should employees learn new skills? 2, does the company need more employees? 3, are the employees performing to the expectation? That's what we call the gap analysis. You need to ask yourself, do I need to give new skills, or do I need to train the current employee I have? Or I need to look outside the organization. Okay. Do you need to hire more employees, or you want to retain the current employees? Is your worker, are your employees performing, or they are not? These are the questions you ask under gap analysis. If you discover that your employees are not performing, what could be the reason? Could it be lack of motivation? Could it be lack of training? If it's because of lack of training, then it's high time you need to think of training them. If it's because of motivation, you need to think of what best to do in order to motivate your workers. So that is under gap analysis, and it greatly contributes to manpower planning or human resource planning. The last step now is developing and implementing a plan. The answers to questions from the gap analysis help the HR determine how to proceed, which is the final phase of the human resource planning process. For example, if in the gap analysis you have discovered that employees are not performing well, why? Training is the problem. Then you can plan for training. In fact, training is part of human resource planning or manpower planning. Okay. And if they are not performing because of maybe lack of motivation, you need to start thinking of motivating your workers. Motivation is also one of planning for human resource, because we plan for human resource for future. We don't plan for today only. We plan for future. How can you plan for future if you don't motivate people? Because motivation determines the labor turnover. If people are not motivated, then they'll end up leaving the organization, which results into labor turnover. So basically, these are some of the steps for you to consider when you want to conduct your manpower planning or human resource planning. Now, let us look at the human resource planning in an organization. Every line manager is responsible for planning manpower of their respective department. In an organization, we have more than one department. Okay, the Department of Human Resources itself, the Department of Finance, we have the Department of Logistics and Supply, etc. So we have the heads of those departments. They are responsible for the plan in terms of the job descriptions. Because people who work in the IT department, the IT head knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing more than the human resource department. The human resource department can get information from the IT department concerning the job description. Number two is the top management is responsible for the planning of the resources for the entire organization. When we talk about the training, if the plan involves training, who's going to fund the training? Actually, the money for funding the training does not come from the human resource department itself. The department has no money. The department only deals with the staff records, but not with the finance. So it is the top management to support it. They will organize the resources to make sure that the training is given to the employees. The next one is the personnel department supplies relevant information and data to all the line managers and helps those regarding interdepartmental transfers, promotions, demotions, etc. All the files, like I've told you before, HR is all about is staff record. They have the record, how you perform, your academic record, everything. So they give those informations to the departmental heads to make sure that if there is a promotion, it has to be based on the information given to them by the HR department. If it's about transfer, it has to be based on the information given to them by the HR department. So basically, this is how human resource planning is conducted in an organization. It's a teamwork. It's not only the HR department, though the HR department is the lead department to do that. In the next slide, we're looking at now the human resource planning factors. What are those factors we consider when conducting human resource planning? We have categorized them into two. One is the external factors. And external factors, we are looking at the government policies, example, the labor policy, industrial relations, etc. These are some of the factors we need to look at as potential HR managers. These greatly affect the human resource planning. For example, the labor policy, okay, the recruitment policy, whereby jobs are given to the locals. So if the policy is given the job to the locals, now, do you think you can get someone from abroad? No. According to the labor law of South Sudan, only if the skills required for the job is not in the country, that's when the organization can hire from abroad. So that policy, you have to follow it as you're planning for the manpower in the organization. The next one is the level of economic development. Economic development is characterized by employment rate, income level. These are the characteristics of economic development. Like in a country where the economy is not doing well, you find there is a high rate of unemployment, high rate of poverty. All these are under economic environment. So how does it affect human resource department in manpower planning? If the rate of unemployment is high, what is the implication to the HR department? It means the salary will be low, that's one, because there's a high rate of unemployment, whereby people will be earning small money because of the rate of unemployment. That's what's going to affect the human resource department. Number two is it can affect in terms of salary administration. Where do you get the money from if the economy is not doing well? If you are working in a private sector, where do you get the money from to get your employees, to get the best talent? Well-resourced companies, they're looking for the best talent, but for you, since you do not have the money, you are looking for those lower people who are not well qualified to do the job, just because of the economic environment. So these are some of the factors and economic environment you need to look at as you are planning for human resource. In fact, another factor and economic environment is that we have underemployment. Okay, underemployment is also a determinant of economic development. You find someone is having a master's degree, but the person is a nursery school teacher. See, you're teaching nursery when you have a master's. That's what we call underemployment. It is not good. The next external factor we're looking at is the business environment. Under business environment, we are talking about the competition now. We are operating under a very competitive environment. If you are in a private sector, very competitive. This greatly affects the HR planning in terms of salary. You have to spend a lot of money to retain people. If you do not do that, then your competitor is going to take them away. And what happens if they are taken away from you? The company is going to collapse, of course. Definitely the company will collapse. Then your competitor will be gaining. So this greatly affects the HR planning in the organization. Then lastly is the level of technology. The level of technology also affect the HR planning. So you need to look at the level of technology. Some technology increases the number of employees like we have looked at earlier, and then others also decreases the number of employees. Now people are using robots in factories to do work. So where robots are employed to do work as HR, what is in your mind if you're talking about planning in terms of number? Definitely you're going to reduce the number of workers because robots are doing the job. So basically, these are some of the factors you need to look at as human resource managers or as potential human resource manager when you are administering manpower or HR planning. Now let's look at the internal factors. The first one, external, but these ones are internal factors. Under internal factors, we're talking about the company policies and the strategies. These policies could be in terms of expansions. Some companies, they don't want to expand. Where the company doesn't want to expand, it affects the human resource. You are not going to recruit more workers because you're not going to expand. But if you have expansion strategy policy, you need to expand across the country. Yambio, Marindi, Yei, Wow, Barakazalbo. You have that plan. It means you're going to have more workers. In your plan, you will target more than 200 or 300 workers. That's if the company has the expansion policy. The next policy is not the human resource policies. The human resource policies also affect manpower planning in terms of salary. Okay, if your compensation policy is that you don't pay more than a certain amount of money, it's going to affect you because if you're planning to hire someone who's going to get more than that, it is going to go against your policy. It means you need to maintain your current pay scale or pay structure. Another explanation for human resource policy is also the way you do your recruitment. Some HR department, they prefer internal source of recruitment instead of external. All these have impact on the human resource planning. The next one is the job analysis. We do job analysis basically to determine three things. One is the job context. Number two is the job content. Then the last one, the job requirements in terms of academic qualifications and the experience. Now, in the job analysis, how does it affect the HR planning? This one comes in terms of the job description. We develop job description based on the information we obtain from conducting job analysis. So the job descriptions has effect on human resource planning because you are going to now look for specifically people who are going to perform that job. That's under job analysis. The next one now is the time horizons. Time is a big factor, not only in human resource department, in almost our lives. Time is a big factor. It affects the HR. The duration of the contract, how long are you going to retain the employee there? Even external factors to do with the organizational lifespan. Some organizations, they do work on project. If the project is going to end, for example, next year, what are you going to do? Are you going to plan for more than 5-6 years when the project is ending next year? Honestly, no. All these have impact on the human resource planning. Now, the last one is the type and the quality of information. Remember, the human resource planning is done based on the information you are getting from the departments. The departments are not giving you the accurate information. It means it's going to affect your manpower planning. If they're telling you that we have too much work, the workload is too much, we need workers. Now, you end up adding another worker, yet the thing is just less, the work is not too much. So it affects because you are not planning to recruit, but they have brought information that there are no workers, the workload is too much. So it means you are adding workers when the workload is actually not much. But because of the information you are getting, it has made you to add on another employee. So that is a factor to consider which affects the human resource planning. Now let us look at the human resource planning prerequisites. One is proper linkage between HR plan and organizational plan. Human resource is just a one department in the organization, but organization comprises of very many departments. So you need to have that linkage between the HR and then the entire organization plan. When we talk of organizational plan, we take into account the financial department, the logistic department, the IT department. That's prerequisite number one. Then number two is the top management support is essential. The HR department is not the overall. We have people who are above that. So their support is needed in terms of training, because if you are planning to train employees maybe abroad, where do you get the money from? Do you get your own money to pay them? No, you need the support of the top management. If they say yes, then you're going to implement your plan. But if they say no, then your plan is not going to be successful. So as human resource managers, you need to seek for the support of those top management. The next prerequisite is the qualitative and the quantitative approaches. So you need to look at the quality of the employees planning, not only the quantity. Okay, the quality in terms of qualification, performance, that's what we are meaning here. Then the quantitative is also the number matters. Much as we are talking about the quality, the number matters. You cannot have only 3 quality workers in the entire organization. Okay, you need to have at least a good number of quality workers. That means quality and the quantity must be considered. The next one is involvement of operating managers is necessary. When you talk of operating managers, could be the department head. You need to involve them because they are the direct supervisors. The HR does not go and start supervise each and every department. You have departmental heads. They are the ones responsible for supervision. So you need to involve them in the human resource planning. They will give you viable information that you only doing it by yourself. The next one is the proper alignment between the short-term HR plans and the long-term HR plans. What do you want to achieve tomorrow, next tomorrow, and what do you want to achieve in the next 5 or 10 years? You need to have that kind of alignment. If your short-term plan now is to train the workers, how long are you going to maintain them after training them? Because tomorrow they might end up leaving the organization. Okay, you invest in someone, but tomorrow the person leaves you and goes somewhere. So these are the challenges. So you need to take into consideration also the long-term aspect of it. After you training the person now, you need to plan for 10 or 15 years so that the person will start working with you for long. Now let's look at the environmental scanning of human resource planning. One is the social environment. And the social environment, we are talking about the religion, the culture of the workers, even the gender. These are all under social environment. Make sure that you don't have only a workforce comprising of one religion. Don't have only the workforce comprising of only one tribe or only one gender. That's not acceptable in human resource planning. Make sure that you scan that environment to see how many female workers do you have, how many Christians or Muslims do you have, how many Catholics do you have. All these are under social environment. The next one is technological environment. We are talking about now the technologies, the machines we have in the organization. Do we have people operating them or not? These are the environment we look at. Consider that one very seriously. If you have some computers, very complicated computers which cannot be operated, or you have robots which cannot be operated, then you need to think of operators, someone who's going to operate some of those machines. The next one is the economic environment. You need to take into consideration the economic environment, analyze the level of employment or unemployment in the country before you start planning for human resource. The next one is the political environment. This could be in terms of insecurity, it could be in terms of taxation policy, it could be in terms of the labor law. So you need to consider all these. The political factor and the political factor, you can talk about the taxation policy, you can talk about the labor law, and then the insecurity. So finally, is also the demographic factors. You don't need to have only people who are below maybe 20 years. You need to mix them up. You don't need to have only people who are having masters. Think about the bachelor's or diploma also, and also think about the gender. The gender also matters under demographic factors. So basically, these are some of the environmental scanning and human resource planning. Now, let us look at the benefits of human resource planning. One is retention of top talent. You're going to maintain the most talented people if you really plan for them well. I've told you that the planning is in terms of training, the planning is in terms of motivation, etc. So if you do that, you're going to have talented workers. Next is reduced cost of associated with personnel management. I've already explained that. The cost of hiring new workers, the cost of interview advertisement, these are all going to be avoided. The next one is the maximum number of employees. It means you are not going to have employee surplus, or you are not going to have employee shortage. So these are some of the benefits of HR planning. Maybe lastly, the employee training and development. Planning is all about training. Planning is all about development. There's no way you can plan for human resources if you don't take into consideration training as part of your planning. So basically, these are some of the benefits of human resource planning in the organization. Lastly, let us look at the problems of human resource planning. One is resistance by employers and employees. Some employers, the top managers or the organization, they resist because planning is costly, especially training. Okay, it means a lot of money. They might not accept it. Even some employees, they might not want it. If you're talking of transfer as part of your plan, they feel like, why would I go and work in Bahar al Ghazal when my family is here in Juba? So some of them may end up resisting. Then the next one is uncertainties. You're here planning for me, but you don't know what is in my head. You're here taking me for training, you don't know what I'm thinking. After the training, I might come back and resign, or I go somewhere. These are all some of the problems of human resource planning. The next one is inaccuracy of information. Information to do with the employee performance. If the information is not accurate, you may end up training someone when the person already has the skills. Or you may end up, okay, that's just like training the wrong person because of inaccuracy of information. That's not good. The last one now is the time and expenses. Planning takes time. Training requires time. At times it takes like 2 months, 3 months. It depends on the nature of that training. And also it's very expensive in terms of money because you have to facilitate the training. The employee does not pay the money for training by themselves. The organization is supposed to pay for the training, not you, the HR manager, but the organization is the one to pay for the training. So it becomes expensive. We have come to the end of this presentation. See you in the next presentation.